Hi guys, Yuki here, back with Seduce Me to the Demon War. Alright, we just walked into Damien and he's having issues and we need to figure out what we gotta do. I don't know, I can't just stand there. Well, I don't know. Try to help. I need to find some way to help him. I began to think everything I could. Get the brothers, get Diana, get someone to heal him. I could hold him close and try to soothe him. However, the more I thought of things to do, the more Damien began to close in on himself, shaking. My eyes widened in realization. He was getting bombarded with thoughts, and I was adding to it. At that moment, I let my mind go blank, hoping it would help Damien calm down. As I did, Damien continued to shake, but not as violently as he did before. However, a full minute passed, and nothing had changed. I began to instinctively worry, but I forced the feeling into my chest and continued to let my head remain empty of thought. Damien attempted to take deep breaths, trying to calm down further, but to no avail. I became even more worried than before. What was I supposed to do?
Libera mente tua.
The sound of Diana's voice echoed through the room, forcing me to turn around and look at her as she stood at the doorway. She stared hard at Damien, holding a hand out to him. Her fingers and palm began to glow a dark purple color like a flame dancing over her skin. Oh, dang. How do I... Oh, 1 second. Sorry about that. How to do that real quick? Toggle. Okay. The flames around Diana's hand sparked, intensifying in its glow. As Damien winced and hissed out from a sting of pain, I continued to remain still, not wanting to add to the pressure in Damien's head, but confused as to what Diana was doing. Very slowly, Damien's head began to glow the same purple color before a stream of purple energy began to trickle from him towards Diana's hand. As it connected, the energy around Damien's head began to fade at last, and Damien's tense form began to relax. Diana tensed her hands and caused a flame around her skin to wrap around itself, forming an orb above her palm as she turned towards her. As she turned it towards her, as it settled into a physical purple ball, she grasped it, and let it shatter in her hand. Glass and blood began to trickle from her closed grip as Damien finally released a breath of air, slamming his hands down on the mattress beneath him and curling himself further over his knees. Damien? I instinctively reached over and placed my hands on his arm, feeling the cold sweat run down from the struggle he was fighting against earlier. He was paler than before, but his face slowly melted into an expression of calm relief. I looked back at Diana, seeing her lift her hand to her mouth and look over her new wounds. Blood trickled down her arm, but she managed to catch most of it with her tongue, unfazed by Damien's sudden relaxation or my stare. What did you do? Diana kept her focus on her arm and hand as she replied.
I did something that his brothers should have done a long time ago. Placed a barrier on his mind.
What? I furrowed my eyebrows in confusion, not understanding what she meant. As Diana finally looked back at me, she let out a sigh at my expression.
He can read minds, but he can't control it. However, imagine putting a bubble around his thoughts. He wouldn't be able to hear anything but his own. This is precisely what I have done.
Oh, yeah, I forgot I was supposed to I really should make a list of things I should do before I actually start recording, but I never do that. Need to fix the quality. There we go. Then what was that energy you pulled from him?
That was something that shouldn't have been there. It's nothing to be concerned about. Right, Damien?
No, I need to know, because you can't just not... No. I need to know. Again, I became more confused. However, I looked up to Damien to see him looking at Diana with an almost forced, thankful look. I could tell he was grateful for the assistance, but I could tell he was still angry with
However, that spell won't last forever. He'll need to maintain it using energy. But I'm sure you can provide that, correct?
I was lost, but I understood what she was saying, nodding in agreement. I'm sorry, but I need to know. What did you take from Damien? I wanted to know exactly what was going on. The confusion that was going on. Oh, I need to blow my nose. Be right back. My nose. I wanted to know exactly what was going on. The confusion that was going on throughout the day of Damien's well-being was too much to ignore, and I needed to sort it out. If not for him, then for my own sanity. Diana gave me a firm look, crossing her arms.
A little piece of the demon lord that has been haunting him. Happy?
I never knew it, but I figured it would be something like that, but not that. Because I can't, I'm not that smart. I'm not that good of a detective. But just like Diana has her demons, so does Damien. What? Diana shook her head and let out a sigh.
He can explain if you're that curious.
Diana then turned on her heel and walked towards the door. Before she left, however, she turned back and looked to Damien.
Be careful how much you feed. You've been without energy for too long. You'll be craving soon. With those haunting words, Diana finally left the room as Damien laid his head on mine. He let out a tired sigh as I looked up at him, lost as ever. Just from his expression, I could tell that he was just beyond relief to be out of whatever torture the mind reading had forced upon him. It was something he never wanted, and yet he had to endure it for the day until Diana blocked his mind. Why she didn't do it before was beyond me, but at least he was okay now. The more I thought about it, the more part of me began to question the situation. If Damien could block out his mind reading, then would it be possible for him to want to be a demon again? As a demon, he had many interesting abilities. Then again, it was his decision, and from what he had told me about his past, he didn't wish to relive any of it with the skin he was born in. I left the inner conflict wane as I cupped Damien's cheek, feeling him nuzzle into it. Right now, Damien needed some tender, loving care, and I needed to provide it. Are you okay?
I am now.
I could hear the ease drip from his voice, making me smile. He was okay now. I slowly climbed into bed with him and wrapped my arms around his body, feeling him cuddle into my embrace, and let out a hum of joy at the feeling. It was cute to see him like this, but then again, he was cute to begin with. Another reason why I loved him. I ran my hands slowly through his hair as I let him settle down from the ordeal he went through. I could tell he was exhausted, but just like I was. However, he began to speak, making me awaken enough to pay attention to him.
I've been having nightmares, too.
You have? I looked down at Damien as he nodded and looked up at me. The dark circles under his eyes were as much more prominent the closer I was to him, making me frown a bit at the sight. Still, he continued.
Some sort of shadow kept visiting me and taunting me for my choices. It would change shape every time, and just now, it only helped in making my mind-reading abilities worse.
Damien. I gave Damien a small squeeze, making him lean up and kiss my cheek before nuzzling his head into my shoulder, continuing.
I didn't want to worry you with it because I thought it was a side effect to becoming human. But I guess it was right. I was always a demon.
I frowned even further and nuzzled his head gently. It's gone now, right? There's nothing you need to worry about anymore.
I know.
Damien and I held on to each other, both settled into the situation we were under. There was a large step for us, and we had to somehow deal with this most likely after we returned to the demon world. Would Damien get used to being a demon once again, or will he demand to try and become a human once more? I couldn't say for sure. The exhaustion that plagued us took over at last, driving us to sleep within each other's arms. I have expected the night to be uneventful, but my thoughts began to plague me, trying to disassemble all of my discoveries and everything that had happened to us in my subconscious. We were in the demon world, and Damien was back to being a demon, despite the fact that he never actually became human in the first place, even though Diana said that she had done it. The dizzying cycle of confusion waved around each thought, making them spin as I tried to organize and dissect them.
There's no use in trying, dear. You'll only become more confused in the end.
Diana's voice rang out in the air, causing me to look around in surprise at the dark. Diana?
Keep telling yourself that, dear. Whatever helps you sleep.
I spun around the space, trying to pin down where her voice was coming from, but saw nothing but the black color of my imageless dreams greet me as I did. Still, Diana's voice rang out to me loud and clear, as if she were there watching and speaking to me somewhere nearby. Was this only meant to confuse me more? What do you want?
What do you think, dear? I'm here to haunt you and tell you how your life is a complete mess now that Damien is back to being a demon. Oh, wait. He was never human in the first place.
Your taunts do nothing for me. They're just like, meh. I sneered at the dark, unbelieving what I was hearing. He might as well have been. Oh no, yeah, there goes my voice. He didn't have magic or mind reading or anything, so he was close enough.
Something tells me that you're actually happy about the turn of events, no?
No. What?
Think about it. Damien with his powers. He's not a boring human. He can enthrall you and use magic and protect you forever and ever without worrying about human trivialities.
I kind of feel bad because I kind of was thinking about that in the back of my mind. But I think Damien's happiness is worth more than what I want. So I took a moment to myself, taking in what the voice proclaimed in Diana's voice. While it was true that Damien and I accepted his humanity, a part of me was rather excited to see him as a demon again. Maybe it was this nostalgia of meeting him as a demon, or maybe it was because it was a part of him I loved that made me happy. I couldn't tell. At my silence, the voice in the air chuckled deeply.
See? There's nothing wrong with a little demon power. What was Damien thinking?
At that moment, my mind began to cloud with agreement. What was Damien thinking? Why desire to be human? Humans were weaker than demons, and he could do so many things now that he had a barrier around his mind reading. He didn't have to give up his powers now, and everything would be completely okay. The voice disappeared, leaving the thought of Damien engraved in my dreams. He ran through my mind as the night passed to morning the next day. I woke up to Damien still in my arms. With the grogginess of the morning overtook my body and made me feel like going back to sleep. Something about Damien in my arms made me keep my eyes open. He seemed at peace, finally having some shut-eye and getting proper rest. I felt a wave of happiness run through me, but at the same time I couldn't help but remember the voice in my dreams. Damien was a demon. I ran my fingers through Damien's hair, becoming lost in thought once again. Was I being selfish, or was I just being positive? Damien seemed to be the only one to hate his mind reading, and that was taken care of. At the same time, a wave of reality washed over my moral compass. Damien had to be the one to decide. It was his body, and he was the one ultimately living it. But was it even possible to become human? The question crossed my mind, and I settled in as I stared at the far wall. Would Damien even have a choice? Well, if there was no choice in the matter, then Damien was set to live a happier life with his mind-reading ability under a barrier. I just have to give him energy, which didn't seem to be a big deal. As Damien nuzzled my shoulder in his sleep, I looked down at him and smiled. Yeah, it was okay. I rubbed my eyes but stopped as I managed to spot Diana at the doorway holding 2 plates of food and leaning against the doorframe. The food looked delicious, but the intrusion was out of place. Diana? Diana placed a finger to her lips before walking over and gently placing the food she brought onto the table near the bed. Being careful not to make noise, Damien seemed to cuddle closer despite obviously smelling the food by the wiggle of his nose. I couldn't help but smile and nod to Diana, combing my fingers through Damien's hair as Diana crossed her arms and watched, lowering her voice to barely above a whisper to speak to me.
You seem to be in a good mood.
I nodded, looking up at the succubus as I gently gave Damien a squeeze. Yeah, Damien got some sleep, which is what he needed. I took the moment to look down at Damien's sleeping face, seeing how innocent and peaceful it was. The dark circles under his eyes seemed to have vanished, causing another relaxed wave to rush over me.
Have you given him any energy?
I shook my head, not remembering at all ever giving him energy. Whether he took energy in or sleep was something I would be unaware of, so I could only assume that he had not taken any from me at all. Diana pressed her lips together before looking to Damien.
You'll need to feed him energy soon.
I know. Diana nodded and replied before turning on her heel and walking to the door. Before she crossed the threshold, however, she looked back over her shoulder.
I'm curious about something.
Huh? What is it? For a moment, hesitation took over Diana's expression before she settled into her curiosity and asked.
What are your thoughts?
Oh no! Why did you do that? I can't scroll back. I stared at Diana, seeing the curiosity burn in her eyes. My grip slightly tightened around Damien as I let my thoughts try and construct an answer. At the same time, I wasn't entirely 100% sure myself. He wants to be human. It doesn't matter what I want, it's what he wants. At the end of the day, Damien desired to be human above anything else. He made that clear when we met, and I wanted to respect this decision. Or I fell in love with him, even if he became a human. He and I were closer that way. Diana stared at me for a moment before nodding in acknowledgement and leaving the room, closing the door behind her. That was an interesting interaction. Looking down at Damien's sleeping form, he turned his head in his sleep so I could only see the top of his orange head. I smiled slightly and kissed the top of his head, causing him to stir a bit in my arms. At the end of it all, I wanted what was best for us, and that was something we had to deal with together. Whether or not this ended with him being human or not was up in the air, but for now, I had the responsibility for caring for him. Damien gently squeezed my form, allowing me to take in that he was awake now and looked up at me with tired eyes.
Good morning.
I couldn't help but smile at his expression. He was an early bird, but the rare occasion where I caught him more entranced in sleep than me were moments I found so adorable. Good morning, sleepyhead. Damien blushed a bit before crawling up a bit and kissing me sweetly. I smiled wider against his lips and wrapped my arms around him, melting into the kiss lovingly. It had been years since I felt an incubus's energy drain, so to feel my energy snake over my nerves and into my lips felt odd. I had to get used to it again for now, and I tightened my arms around Damien to keep him from pulling away from the slight surprise it brought me. As we slowly pulled away, I could see a tint of gold course through Damien's eyes. As he looked down at me and licked his lips, a red tint brushed over my cheeks. Was my energy that delicious? What did it even taste like? Before I could ask, however, Damien sat up and stretched his arms over his head, letting a small yawn trickle from his throat. When he relaxed, he looked towards the table, seeing the food Diana brought us.
Oh, wow. Did you make that?
I looked over before shaking my head. Diana came and delivered it to us. Damien observed the plates for a bit as he listened to me before rolling out of bed and going to the table and lifting the plates off of them. As he turned back to me, I took the time to sit up in bed, leaning against the bedpost. Damien passed the plate to me and sat beside me, placing his own plate in his lap and eating what was prepared for us. I, however, watched for a moment, wondering what was going on in his head. What did he think about this whole thing? He seemed to be in better shape than he was before, which was good. Was he easily adjusting back to being a demon? A part of me felt a little happy at the idea, while the other part of me tried to be realistic. This was temporary. Maybe. As Damien caught me staring, he looked up to me and stopped eating, causing me to flinch from being caught and started eating my own food.
What is it? You were staring at me. What's wrong?
I need a... What do you think about this?
About what?
Well, about you being a demon and stuff. I couldn't read his mind. I needed to figure out somehow, and it was better to ask him personally than make assumptions. Maybe it changed his mind about the whole thing, or maybe it became worse. Only he knew. Damien looked down at his plate for a moment before closing his eyes.
I don't like it.
You don't?
I don't. As good as it is to have my powers back, I still don't like using them.
So, you'd rather be a human without powers to fight? I didn't intend to seem rude with the question, but the idea of enjoying a powerless life seemed rather odd to me. Damien nodded, affirming my comment.
I would rather have no abilities at all than live with the responsibility of them. Having power has brought me too much pain.
Damien looked up at me, serious flame in his eyes.
But if having powers will get us home, then I will do everything I can to ensure that we return safely.
I stared wide-eyed at Damien, surprised at his words, but thankful for now how much he was willing to work for us to get back home. He was right. What mattered at that moment was getting us home. We would figure the human part out after we returned. Damien and I continued to eat and eventually separated for training. Him to his brothers and me towards my own training session. Diana awaited me in the Great Hall, crossing her arms as I stepped inside.
Are you ready to go?
I nodded. I was ready for whatever Diana had in store for me. However, I didn't expect the door into the room to shut on its own behind me and for my body to freeze up. What the... I stared wide-eyed as Diana, seeing her eyes glow gold as she began to very slowly step towards me.
What are you waiting for? Fight me!
My body couldn't move. I felt warm and fuzzy, a tingling sensation running along my body and dulling my senses. As I stared at Diana, I felt myself notice every curve of her body, every stroke of taint on her body painted over her skin, and became almost erotic to me.
The longer you take, the more enthralled you will become. Fight me.
My mind began to struggle naturally. I didn't want to fall for her. I was in love with my fiancé, not the woman who tried to take him and his brothers away from me. Struggle or focus? I took a deep breath and focused, ignoring the hold of my body, and I concentrated on my own energy, attempting to flow through my veins. It was strange. I felt certain parts of my body were locked in place, and because of that, the rest of my body couldn't move. Was succubus enthrallment like that, or was this a new form of paralysis enthrallment? I'd never noticed before, but now that I was focused on it, I could feel my energy begin to break down, the grasp Diana's spell had on me. With each part of my body that broke free, I could feel myself gain more and more control over myself. My will became stronger, and I found myself smirking at the incoming Diana, who merely smirked back.
You're learning.
Learning from the best. With a final push, I forced the enthrallment off my body and checked my circlet in front of me, forming a large floating ring around my horn. Diana quickly formed her saber in her hand and charged at me at full speed, causing the circlet ring around me to break into multiple shards and dart at my incoming opponent in a volley. Diana quickly parried and dodged each one with ease, but I kept my focus on the circlet, causing it to form back together behind Diana in a large collar and fly at my target. Before Diana could even turn to react, the collar locked itself around Diana's neck and hair, causing her to gasp. I swiftly forced the circlet to pull Diana in an arc to the side, slamming her against the wall. Dang. For a second I panicked that I seriously hurt her, but at the same time something within my gut felt a little satisfied that I had done that to Diana. Was it sadistic of me to take pride in fighting back? I don't know. I'm a pacifist, not a fighter. At the moment, something dark began to haunt my mind. What if I was able to kill her? No! I had my circlet around her neck. Ew. And I could easily snap her neck with it. Don't do it.
Why not? Wouldn't you like to exact revenge?
Get out of my mind, demon shard. Huh? I quickly removed my focus from my circlet to behind me, spotting the copycat Diana in the corner of the room, smirking from ear to ear like a Cheshire cat. The real Diana coughed and ripped the circlet from her neck, not yet able to notice the dark Diana in the room. You!
What? Aw, you let her go too soon, sweetie.
I glared hard, felt my circlet reform around my wrist as I turned to face a copycat of Diana in physical form, a dark aura glowing around her body. What the hell? Why was it here? Diana shook off the impact as she absorbed my attack and rushed in front of me, blocking me from the copycat's view.
Again, with the defending, Azure. I have to say, it's rather annoying to see you defend a measly human. How did you come out of my body?
What? The thing was in Diana's body? How? What was going on with this copycat and Diana? I became more and more confused as I stared. The copycat, however, laughed and crossed her arms under her bosom.
Your little training session with the human has made you weak. It was only natural to leave when the door was wide open.
Instantly, Diana's hand began to glow and a large purple snake-like tendril slithered out of her palm. Diana arced her arm towards the copycat, wrapping the tendril around the copycat's neck and pulling it forward. To my surprise, the copycat simply braced herself with her heels digging into the floor and her hands around her new collar.
Our feud is between us. Go back to where you belong. You can't hide your feelings forever, love. The truth will come out sooner or later.
What did this thing mean? The truth? What truth? I began to question what it could be in my mind before seeing Diana send a wave of energy through the tendril, making the wrap around the copycat's neck tighten.
I will not ask again!
With a hideous, choked laugh, the copycat's body began to shift and sway as it was becoming a vaporous form. However, the mist channeled itself into Diana's tendril and faded into it as the tendril itself began to vanish. With a heavy sigh, Diana curled over herself and shook her head.
Damn that thing!
Diana! Diana wouldn't turn to me, but my curiosity began to heavily peck at my mind. What was that thing, really? How did it come to be? Why was it haunting Diana and taunting me? Hey, it rhymed. What was the truth Diana was hiding? I am not letting it go. What was that? I needed to know what was going on. It was like an itch that was desperate to be scratched, despite it not being my place to prod. Diana paused for a moment before standing up straight and walking to the window, looking out of it and crossing her arms.
There's a term in the human world for it. When you are haunted and easily taken off guard after war.
Post-traumatic stress disorder? I furrowed my eyebrows. I knew what she meant, but that was beyond what PTSD was. PTSD didn't take a physical apparition of yourself come to life. Post-traumatic stress disorder. But, Diana, that can't just be it.
Well, unfortunately, it's the only explanation I can give.
I don't understand. It didn't make any sense at all. I could tell that Diana was lying to me, but why? Was the truth really that complicated or dark? Diana sighed and looked back at me.
The Demon Lord is a special kind of beast. He is a brute demon who rose above his nomadic birth and became the ruler of a kingdom after marrying a noble succubus. The eldest son's mother, I believe.
Diana continued despite my inner thoughts.
However, since that day, he became power-hungry and began his tyrannical takeover of every neighboring kingdom, plaguing the land with his iron fist. He took in 3 more wives and bore sons with them, and impregnated a harem girl, giving him a 5th bastard son.
I grimaced, knowing the story of Damien and his mother. I didn't want to dwell on it, so I shook my head and focused on what Diana said next.
Eventually, his carnal need for control became the fuel for his madness. He grew rampant, and his sadistic views became much more destructive and bloody.
Diana looked to me with a thoughtful look before continuing.
In this world, madness isn't just an affliction of the mind. It is also a form of energy that grows like a festering disease. When it takes hold of you, you become reckless, mindless, soulless, and you become your own worst enemy.
Now everything began to make sense. I stared at Diana, seeing the shame in her eyes. I could tell that this deeply troubled her, but she carried herself very well despite being affected by this. Which is why she didn't want to train me, because she's still angry at me. So you have it?
I can only assume so. A mild form of it anyway. If you get too close to it, or get injured by it, like I have, then it will latch onto you and feed off of your own energy to grow. The results? Well, you saw for yourself, didn't you?
I nodded, remembering the copycat. While the Diana before me was a pretty decent person, the copycat seemed more of the Diana I had met in the human world, who tried to take the boys away from me. It was in her speech, her stance, and I couldn't shake her smugness from my mind. A feeling of concern rushed through me. If madness was like a disease, was there a cure for it? Would Diana be haunted by it forever? Well, is there a way to get rid of it? Diana smirked for a moment, staring at the ground. What was so funny?
There's only a rumor of a cure, but it's impossible to achieve. At least for me.
What is it? As Diana looked back up at me, I could practically see herself bearing any emotion from the words that came out of her mouth.
True love. According to rumor, true love isn't just a silly emotion humans feel when they desire or care for someone. But it is also a pure form of energy, powerful enough to conquer worlds.
My mind went blank. Love was a form of energy? I began to feel with both sudden determination and ideas of grandeur. I was in love, so I had to have it. Wait, then
True love doesn't exist, dear.
And suddenly my thoughts broke again. What did she mean? The love I felt was real, and it was a form of energy. And if it was a form of energy, then it had to exist. The look in Diana's eyes could kill, however, as she almost glared daggers into my soul as she interrupted me. Diana chuckled and shook her head, crossing her arms in her bosom and leaning on her hip.
Think about it. If it was as powerful as the rumors described it to be, then you would be able to break the curse upon you with ease.
Yet I'm still here.
Besides, love doesn't exist for demons here in the demon world. I don't know how the incubi were able to achieve it, but in this world, love is non-existent.
I pressed my lips together. Irritated at the brush off Diana was giving the idea of love being a real power. Sure, it wasn't powerful enough to break the curse on me, but I could tell that the rumors weren't lying about it being a form of energy. Diana rolled her shoulders and ran a hand through her hair, running her fingers along one of her horns.
Luckily, I have Saro to thank for keeping me in check. As long as I focus on defeating the Demon Lord and feeding off of Saro, then the madness tends to stay down.
I thought of Saro and how devoted he was to Diana. He seemed to really care for her, if not love her. If he was able to keep her madness down, did that mean that he was giving her the energy she needed to fight it off? Was Diana blind? After hearing her talk ill of love, I could only assume she didn't care enough for it to believe it. I actually found it a bit hilarious to think about, that she was so naive about it that she couldn't recognize her own servant giving her a cure. Diana shook her head and turned to full-face me.
Enough talk. We have to keep training.
I could only agree. Still, I could feel like something was off. Diana was holding something back. We trained the rest of the day until night came. I treaded towards my room, admiring the decor as my mind wandered to Damien. I began to wonder how his training was going. Was he adjusting to his powers once again? Was he holding back? The idea of him using his powers seemed a bit thrilling. It had been years since he used them after all. What kind of attack could he do now? Especially in the demon world. Dang, you're being kind of selfish.
Oh, many things can happen in this world. You're limiting the possibilities so much.
I stopped walking, suddenly feeling the room dim a bit as I looked around for the voice. It wasn't Diana, I knew that for a fact, but how was this voice in my dreams back to haunt me? Was it... oh man... Was it like how it was able to communicate with me in the human world? I looked around for a mirror but found none in sight.
Again, you limit the powers of magic, dear.
I could only glare into the dark, tensing up and preparing myself for a fight. The laughter that echoed from the dark only made me ease up in a slight inch.
So eager to fight. Too bad you're not as wise as you are brash.
Why don't you just leave me alone?
Because this is entertaining. This little game of will he, can he is just too interesting to pass up. Only a fool would ignore this kind of intrigue.
Then why pretend to be Diana? A lingering silence filled the room, making it that much more creepy. Something about this wasn't right, and I began to feel chills just from standing in the same spot. No one was around to witness me, and I was feeling like prey around to be struck at. At last, a deep chuckle made in my ears.
Because, dear, I'm what you fear the most.
Oh. What?
Think about it. Or should I replay my little rape scene for you again?
I froze, realizing what she meant. She gave me that horrid nightmare and made me watch it? I knew that something had been wrong with it, outside of it being completely disgusting in the first place, but to think that it was induced by whatever this thing was... I practically snarled at the dark. That was you? Oh.
You sound so
Wait.
confident.
No, I didn't.
It feels so good to be recognized.
That was you! Okay. I began to prepare an attack, but found myself faltering due to the exhaustion from my training. The harder I tried, the more the room around me began to spin. I had to stop myself, not wanting to faint in the hallway. The voice in the air chuckled heartily at my struggle, making me grimace and glare harder at the dark.
Oh, I can't wait until you realize who I actually am. The expression on your face will be just so tantalizing.
Ew. Tell me. This game was becoming too insane. This was some voice in my head taunting me and laughing at my struggles to make it stop playing games with me. The voice only laughed.
I don't need to tell you anything, dear. You'll have to figure out that little detail on your own.
What's stopping me from just ignoring you?
You can't. I'm always there, tickling your brain and reminding you of what you truly believe.
With those last haunting words in my mind, the voice finally vanished, and the light of the hallway grew back into its original glow. I took a breath, looking around and taking in the sight of everything as I realized I was alone once more. How much time had passed? I could only grimace and shake my head holding it. This is a major issue, but would I be able to fix this on my own, or would I need help? Damien had problems of his own to deal with. What if I approached Diana about it? I started my journey back to my room as the thoughts in my mind. What the hell was haunting me? Some kind of ghost? A magical entity?
Come on! Guess! Just guess!
How am I supposed to know?
Huh? I stopped walking to the sound of Faye's and Sarah's voice reverberating through the hall around the corner, breaking my thoughts. They sounded intoxicated? Okay. I looked around the corner to see Sarah, Faye, and to my surprise, Damien sitting on the ground by the bedroom door. Damien's face was as pink as a peach, matching Sarah's and Faye's intoxicated faces, but his eyes were glimmering in gold. Had Damien been drinking? He didn't seem to be affected by the chatter between Sarah and Faye.
How am I supposed to know which one you have?
Didn't, they say that getting drunk in the demon world is 10 times worse than in the human world? Or something like that?
I could have both!
Oh.
See, even he agrees that's not fair.
I pressed myself against the wall, listening in further. Why were they all drunk and what were they even talking about?
I will say though, that human girl is just mega super duper powerful, you know?
I'll say, you.
Sarah gave Damien a nudge before taking a swig from a seemingly almost empty bottle before continuing to speak to my incubus.
You got really lucky to land a girl like her. Powerful, feisty, smart. She's like a human version of my lady.
Oh, don't even start talking about Diana, you crazy puppy!
I'm not a puppy. I'm
Wow. I'm enjoying myself. I shook my head, stifling a bit of laugh. This was a little amusing to overhear.
No, she's nothing like her.
This is even... I don't know what to feel.
Huh?
I stared over at Damien, seeing him run a finger along the rim of the bottle, eyes deep in thought.
She isn't a demon. She's a human, pure and perfect. She would never hurt me or do anything cruel to me.
Oh god, no. Why would you say that about me? My heart slightly melted at his words. He really thought that about me?
I loved her ever since I met her, and she's been there for me for everything. She made me human. Well, almost human anyway.
Oh man, no! Damien. Sarah nudged Damien again, laughing a bit.
Well, my lady tried to turn you human. You can't say she didn't try.
Not without making the one I love choose something horrible and give her our energy.
Hey now.
Oh, get off your high horse, puppy boy! Diana's got a mean side and you know it! I'm not surprised she tricked him into giving her that energy.
But I still love her, even when she's mean to me.
I think that's called masochism.
Wow. Damien? I finally turned the corner, facing the three as they looked up at me. As Damien's eyes locked onto mine, I could feel a very weak enthrallment attempt to wrap around my core, but it almost felt sloppily done, allowing me to break through it without even trying. Sarah and Faye scrambled up and pointed at Damien.
It was his fault!
What did he even do? Okay, bye. Before I could make them stop, the pair of demons practically sprinted down the hall and out of sight across the far corner, leaving me and Damien alone. I pressed my lips together and walked towards Damien, seeing him gaze hard into my eyes in an attempt to enthrall me. Damien, what happened? He wasn't answering, and I could tell that he was trying to make the enthrallment happen. Still, I remained unfazed. I sighed and crouched down, helping Damien up and ignoring the ornate empty bottles that fell over all his upward movement. Come on, let's get you inside. I guided Damien inside at last and closed the door behind us. He seemed to follow along, his arm wrapped around my shoulders as I walked him towards the bed. Before I could lay him down, however, he spun me around and pinned me to the wall, staring deep into my eyes. Oh my gosh. Damien? Okay.
I love you.
Aww. But I don't know how to feel about this. I became lost in Damien's glowing gold eyes, feeling his enthrallment attempt once again to consume me. Every warning bell went off in my head, reminding me that he hadn't exactly been fed properly and regularly. This was probably starving for energy. Some part of me, despite all of this, didn't want to let this go. It had been years since I felt his enthrallment on me. My body began to crave the urge to delve into my curiosity. Would it be different? Would I enjoy it more than when we usually held each other? He was starving and I was curious. A deadly combination indeed. I let myself sink against the wall, staring up at Damien as he bore his hungry gaze into my soul. To see the new animal within him seemed too erotic to pull away from.
I just need a bit. Just enough to stop the hunger.
Oh. I don't know. I think I'm gonna leave it here for today. Let me just save real quick. Yep. Anyways, I guess thank you so much for watching. I know I didn't really comment much today. It's just like, I'm trying to get over a cold. I'm almost there. It's just meh. So many things are happening. I don't know much longer this will be, but I think it's gonna be pretty long. Anyways, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video. Bye!